G'day viewers, my name's Sophia Stacey and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists do what they do. Today we're going to Brisbane to see Kim MacKenzie, a wonderful pastel artist, so let's go and see what she's up to in her studio.
Right, so let's start right at the beginning. We have a blank piece of paper and we're going to develop something that might hopefully look something as finished as this artwork in the background. So I have to say up front, I'm not a traditional pastelist. Traditional pastelists usually do portraits or landscapes, very traditional types of artwork, what I would call left brain artwork, and they use different types of pastel papers, usually with a grain or a tooth. But I use 100% cotton paper.
That's really interesting, Kim. I don't think I've come across cotton paper before. Can you tell us where you get it from and what brand it is?
Yes, well, often it's called rag, 100% rag paper, being cotton based. It's like a fabric, if you like. It's generally used for print making because you can't probably see here, but when you go looking for it in the shops, have a feel of the paper. It's very thick, it's quite heavy, and it's very absorbent. So when you use it for print making, it takes the print blocks very easily. You can almost see dints in it. It's that soft and spongy.
And obviously fantastic for pastel work.
Fantastic for soft pastel work. So we need to specify here that I've used soft pastels, and they are chalk based pastels, so they're very powdery, and of course you'll see when we start to use it on the cotton paper, it blends beautifully and very easy to create vibrant, semi-abstract, what you'd call probably more contemporary artworks. Okay, so here's our paper. One of the disadvantages, I guess, with soft pastel is it's quite messy. So you need to work with cloths all the time. You need to be keeping your hands clean, your fingers cleaned. I use a wet ones type of cloth as well to keep the hands clean, and also many rags. Your pastels can get quite grimy, so when you're taking a pastel to use it, I'm always actually cleaning the pastel as well. So you need a variety of rags for different purposes. The other thing is, being a chalk-based medium and using an artist quality material, which is absolutely essential, which I'll get to in a moment, the difference between the cheap and non-toxic and the art quality. They're much more expensive, of course. The quality is just, it's not even, it's just such pure quality. But the problem is that a lot of these are toxic, a lot of the colours are toxic, and you're handling these directly. So some people like to use a mask because it gets very dusty and you're blowing it all the time.
Which is not going to be very good for us today, but it's a good thing to point out to the audience.
It is. It's a little bit uncomfortable and clunky too.
Especially with a microphone on.
But I think it's best workplace practice to actually use some kind of protection there. The other thing is too, your hands. Some people might like to use some very fine glove or some protection so that some of the pigments don't go through. So it is something that you need to think about, particularly if you have skin allergies or whatever. So let's not dwell on that. But let's go to the positive side of pastels.
Fantastic.
As you can see, fantastic, beautiful colour. You can get a range of hard to soft pastels. Amazing colours available in the art shops these days. One of my greatest thrills is going to the pastel section and just standing there and trying to choose a colour. Greatest joy that I have. So when you get a new pastel, it looks a bit like that. It has a wrapping around it. It's very neat and tidy. Once you start getting into things, I rip off the label, I break them in half, and they look like that. All sorts of little pieces that become very valuable. So I often have people in my workshops are really afraid of taking the wrapper off and using them. Got to get rid of that. You've got to get stuck straight into them. These are your tools. They're not a new piece of pastel. Okay, so let's start. I know what I'm going to do here, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because the right-brained approach is generally very open before you create. So you haven't got a set thing in mind. And there's a way of actually doing that, which is what I teach in my workshops. But I do know what I'm going to do. We planned this a little bit earlier. I've planned this because it's a continuous theme from an earlier artwork, which is called brain integration. It's an important artwork that I did not so long ago, and it opened up a lot of thinking for me, and this artwork is an extension of that. So essentially, what we did in that artwork is we defined the spectrum of left versus right brain, and you'll see that at the bottom of that artwork I've put the left brain right as a point, and the top of the artwork a very open space for right brain thinking. So in this artwork I'm reversing that. This is the left brain up here, this is the right brain open space there, and you'll see in that artwork that I've used red colour to depict the peak of the left brain activity.
Kim, this is something that's very unique. There's a lot of colour therapy that goes into your work as well.
There is, Sophia, that's totally correct. What we're doing is we're exploring colour and the vibration of colour, if you like, as a theory, so that we're conscious in the workshops that I teach that when we pick up a colour, we're actually playing with a light frequency. So light frequency, like sound frequencies, have certain properties. They're frequencies of energy. So when you're conscious of that when you're working, you can actually bring that theory in so that the actual diagram is having an impact through a visual design.
And Kim, this is not just on an artistic level, but you've been working with a neuroscientist as well. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, I actually have met a lovely colleague, a neuroscientist colleague, through other activities through the university in Women in Technology, because that's one of my academic disciplines. And she didn't know I was an artist. She came and visited me here, and she was really, really excited about the work I was doing, and specifically this brain integration work. She was really interested in my interpretation and took that away. So it made me realise the power of using artwork, right brain, semi-abstract works to try and distill very large, complex ideas into simple designs to help add a new thought or a new perspective to these traditional disciplines. So I'm really excited in sort of left-right brain works and trying to use a visual medium to explore that.
You've also had your artwork put on numerous magazine covers in Australia, New Zealand and the United States.
I've been very grateful for these opportunities. I love the way that complex topics can use simple diagrams to depict very, big, abstract, complex ideas. For example, the 2 US book covers I did, they were called Truth was one of them and United was the other one. That were the title of the of the artworks. So they were specifically selected by some US designers to depict these very complex ideas that these books were trying to create. So, you know, I was thrilled. Using white is really important in this coloured pastel work. It acts like a mixer, if you like. I would never leave any white area, but if I want it to be white, I actually, you know, use a lot of the white pastel and probably bring in some other shades. When you go to the pastel shop, there's so many varieties of white. So you'll get a sense. You could probably do a whole pastel work with whites and it would be an interesting artwork. So the point being, mainly for this type of work, I used it earlier in places where I want to contrast colour. It helps you to blend, as you can see. It's sort of like putting flour into a cake. It binds and holds it together. It allows you to mix and you know, create patterns and relationships between colour. So it's very important. You wouldn't realise how much you would use a white on a coloured work. So I'm taking the white here. You can see I'm using it as a diluter of the colour. Once you put it down, it allows you to blend, it allows you to lighten shades. It's like a conduit. So a very, very important part of your toolkit.
There's some other images you have here, Kim, that I'd like to make reference to. And one is called Fly, and it's two beautiful beings. It looks like they're dancing around a moon. There's another one we have called Together Forever.
They were all done around the same time when I met my husband, actually. So that was a very inspirational heart phase of my life. So nothing like significant times in your life to inspire great design work. So yes, that was coming together of two worlds. My husband and I, we've been married for 19 years now, and he's been a great supporter of my work, of course, and I wouldn't be here today without him.
So Kim, you've not only had a fantastic art career, but you actually have a PhD as well. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about your studies?
I actually went back to university as a mature age student after about 15 years of full-time artist, and it was a tough road. It was wonderful and I worked incredibly hard. And it was the time when the internet was rising and websites were happening, and I wanted to learn more about that so I could promote my work online. I was starting to get a lot of opportunities from overseas. My work was starting to be used in the Inspector Gadget 2 movies, so that was fantastic, and there was some recognition really brewing. And then I loved study, I loved the uni life. I actually sort of got caught in this whole new direction. It was a great thing. I studied technology and international business and went on to teach there and worked in the uni environment for a couple of years. Fantastic, loved it, developed my left brain, which I needed because I had focused so much on the right brain.
But you also have your own radio show, which is really interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about the people and the topics that you cover on this show?
It's called Rise, and it's exploring new cultures of market practice. And we're going to be exploring any creative person, any business person that's doing new, innovative, visionary, new things out there contributing to the world.
And so Kim, if people want to get in touch with you about your workshops or to find out how to tune in to your radio show, what's your website?
Yes, please. I'd love to hear from anyone that would like to either come on the show or just be a part of the show or just listen to the show. So my website is kimmackenzie.art.com.au.
Now Kim, you mentioned earlier that you've had your work included in a feature film.
They were actually filming here in Brisbane, so I was very fortunate to have made connection with the set designer on that show, and he chose quite a number of works for the movie set. The Kiss and the Love were two artworks that they really featured. The same gentleman really loved my work, which was fantastic, and he then used it for the filming of the Sleepover Club, the UK television series as well. So, you know, a bit childlike, a bit colourful and bright, good for young audiences. This is why it's great for Australian craftspeople and artists to work with in the film industry, and to seek other opportunities. You know, it's like set design work. Once you can get your name out there a little bit, and if you're doing something a bit different and innovative, the world's your oyster. So now we're starting to. And I am speeding up this process a little bit for this shooting, but you can start to see that I'm bringing in detail. So this is actually a vertical work. So you can start to see that we're taking the shape. There's something going on here. It's starting to come alive, and this is where we start using detail. And you use the pastel a little bit differently to the big blending and covering the background areas. So you can see I've just basically emphasised one of the sort of corners of the pastel to create quite a sharp defining line on one side. So you adjust the pressure of that point depending on how much cut depth you want in there. And you just come along with your finger. Great utensils, and you again just blend the same as you have before, but you can start to see that you can really start to bring in some detail, finishing detail here.
You've got another one here called Summer Posy.
Yes, Summer Posy was a part of a collection that was taken on by APNet. They were a French art licensing company, so I was very thrilled about that. I think they took on about 12 images. So now I'm really just building up the depth within each of the main key design areas. So I might be adding a little bit of extra colour in like this.
You had an experience living in New Guinea.
I did. So we were very fortunate to have moved to Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea when I was 11, 12 and 13. And I went to school in Port Moresby. My father got a 2-year contract up there. I had an amazing time. I absolutely loved New Guinea, and it was when I had my first real art experience. Of course, we had to come home then, didn't we, 2 years later, back to the same environment in suburban Melbourne, and that was really difficult, and I really struggled with that personally. And it was at that point that my mother very wonderfully decided to put me into a specialised art school at Box Hill Tech. So this was a pilot art course for year 11 and 12 students. We did, I think, 11 art subjects, preparing us to go into tertiary education that majored in one of the art fields. It was a pilot, fantastic course, and I sort of never looked back from there. So Mum was really good at picking that. So she was a very creative lady, very passionate about following your dream, very passionate about being who you are, and I think she played a very, very important role in helping us as children, you know, become exactly who we wanted to become and have confidence to do that. So very fortunate. I think that, you know, really made a big difference. Normally I would work this up a lot more still, and then at the very end I come and do my final little bit of detail, which I'm going to do now. I wouldn't normally jump into it this early, but we need to show you how that process works. So as you can see, we've got our work. It's looking a little bit like that. And she's ready. I'm happy with it. I think that's as solid as I can make it. I'm ready to put on my final pieces. This is an intuitive process when you know that it's ready, and something usually comes to my mind what exactly that finishing piece needs to be. So that's the mystery of this great semi-abstract process. This is an interacting force. So you can see that's pretty scary, isn't it? You've taken weeks developing a background, bang, you're going and putting something quite radical over the whole top of it. So what I'm attempting to do here is an integration of left brain focus with right brain openness, married with the intelligence of the heart. So many believe that our intelligence lies not only in the brain, in the right and left brain, but in the intelligence of the heart as well. So I've attempted a combination of a heart intelligence combined with the left and right brain, and I've just combined them together with a spiral energy that unifies it all together.
Thank you, Kim. It's been a wonderful day, and sharing these mind-expanding artworks with us. But with the beauty of television, you can now see the final image that Kim has had a chance to work on. Thank you very much, Kim.
You're most welcome.
Been a very mind-opening and thoughtful day.
Lovely, thank you. It's been an absolute delight to share this process with you.
Well, viewers, what another fantastic day on Colour in Your Life. Kim, thank you so much for having us in the studio. I love your work. I love the colours. I love the theory behind your work. I don't think we've had an artist on the show before that really portrays what you're trying to portray. So thank you so much for sharing it with us and the viewers today.
Well, thank you. Thank you to the viewers, and can I just, honour what you guys are doing. It's a fantastic program. It's such a privilege to be involved with your wonderful team and the work that you're doing, and the opportunity that you're giving us to showcase our unique Australian work. It's really important, and you're doing a great job, Sophia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and we also obviously like to thank Graham Stevenson.
Thank you, Graham.
And if you'd like to come and see more of Kim's work, hear more about her workshops and her radio program, and there's some other really interesting things going on in Kim's life that she'll be updating on her website. If you can tell the viewers again, your website is?
Yes, it's www.kimsmackenzieart.com.au. You can contact me through that page as well. My contact details are there.
Fantastic. And of course, viewers, remember to come and see us at colorinyourlife.com.au. But as we always say, remember, make sure you put some colour in your life, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.